tales and curves. Must put an end to the stress and strife. I think I want to live the sporty life. Good times, these are the good times. Leave your cares behind. These are the
You're mute. You're muted.
Looks like we've got quite a crowd here.
There you go.
Well, greetings, everyone. Welcome. I'm Sally Sargent. I'm joining you from Scottsdale, Arizona, which is a beautiful desert city adjacent to Phoenix. For those of you outside the US, we're the fifth largest city in the United States. And we're known for year-round sunshine, world-class resorts, and golf courses. We're also the home to baseball's World Series champions, the Arizona Diamondbacks, and the Phoenix Open Golf Tournament. And we've also hosted 4 Super Bowls right here in my hometown, which I've had the pleasure of working on. I'm delighted to join and host today's launch and celebration of Personalities Remixed. My colors are green-red, so you can be sure we're going to finish on time, even if that means I have to use my can-do red spirit to manage some of our yellows who will be speaking today. And just a little bit about me and how I am connected to the brilliant minds at Equilibria. I had the pleasure of meeting Lewis Sr. about 11 years ago in Houston through a very dear mutual friend, Joni Baird. Over the next few years, I had the honor of developing and leading the Super Bowl 51 host committee in Houston. And we hosted the big game that drew about over 1 million fans. What we did, though, what was so special is we used the e-colors as the foundation to train over 10,000 volunteers for the single purpose of welcoming all of these fans to Houston. And believe me, it worked. It absolutely worked. So today is not just about launching a book. It's about unlocking a conversation about how we lead, connect, grow, and understand the people around us. That's really what this book, Personalities Remixed, is all about. You're going to meet the authors and hear from some special people who will share their incredible stories. But first, let's kick things off with a poll. Can you tell us what your top E color is so we can see what the mix of personalities is we have on this call? Coming in.
Can you see the votes, Sally?
Yes.
Cool.
Lot more red than this morning. I wonder why.
This morning was really interesting.
We're neck and neck with red and yellow.
This morning was really interesting. There was about 25% of everything spread across. It was really, really cool.
Well, it looks like we've got quite a few red and yellow as top colors. Are we still voting?
Yeah, people are still voting. I'm just making sure I'm managing a few microphones as well for everybody. That's
Very
all good. That's all good. If you could just mute yourselves as well, and then obviously we'll ask you to unmute if you're going to speak or you want to put your hand up or anything. More votes coming in, Sally.
Looks like we've got a few more.
Yeah. None of us can vote as the host, remember? Great stuff. Do you want to carry on, Sally, and I'll end that and share it in a few minutes?
Sure. We're still neck and neck with red and yellow.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for joining us today. If you haven't already done so, please feel free to use the chat box throughout the webinar, and just let us know where you're joining us from. And then also, please feel free to share any special words you might have for your authors. And now it's time to meet the authors. Are we ready to do that, Mark, or should we hold for
Oh,
the?
we're absolutely ready for you, Sally. Let's go.
All right, very good. Lewis Sr., Mark Wilkinson, and Paul Grant have combined decades of global leadership coaching and human performance experience to bring you the definitive guide to use eColor's personality system for life-changing results. Since most of you are familiar with the eColors already, imagine how this book will transform relationships and improve decision-making for society. It absolutely has the potential to be a massive game changer for the world at large. So let's talk to the authors and learn how they decided to write the book. So Mark, let's start with you. Joining us from London, Mark Wilkinson. Good afternoon.
Hi, Sally. How are you?
Good, good. Can you give us a snapshot of your involvement with Equilibria and why was now the time to launch Personalities Remixed?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, I've been fortunate enough to be around the e-colors probably for about 15 years. I remember doing my first e-colors report and actually being slightly blown away by this amazing tool. Originally, when I did my questionnaire, I was yellow over blue, and my e-colors said, "You love people, you love music, you love parties." Now, if any of you know anything about Life Remixed and my story, I was a DJ for 20 years, so I did love music and people and parties. And I read this thing and went, "What is this?" And then it started to talk about safety, and it actually said you can get seriously hurt, or worse by jumping in to help someone else without thinking. And I reflected as I was going into my safety profession. I reflected and was like, "Yeah, that's exactly what I do." And therefore, for me, it was a real eye opener, and gave me the opportunity to look at myself in a better way. So Lewis and I, and Paul, have put this book together because we believe it's the right time to do this. It's now 21 years of Equilibria, and it's such an important subject. It's a very complex world. There's a lot of change going on, a lot of things happening very, very quickly, and there's a real need and opportunity to give more people more self-awareness, more emotional intelligence, and indeed make improvements in their leadership and how they lead in every single environment. We have a real dream, a real goal in our world, which is a little bit like, Coca-Cola. We all know how Coca-Cola tastes. We don't all drink it every single day, but we might have a sip of it or whatever now and again. But the key point is we all know how that tastes. And they had a dream that they wanted everyone to know what it tasted like in the world. So from my perspective, I very much want to let everybody taste a bit of the e-colors, and then decide what they want to do with that going forward.
Great analogy.
Thank
It's
you.
lovely. Thank you. Thank you. And now to you, Lewis. Lewis Sr., joining us from Spain. What do you hope readers will take away from this book?
Well, first of all, I just want to say it is fantastic to see so many familiar faces. Some I haven't seen for a while, and some keep in regular contact. And for those who've restarted to get in contact, Mr. Wainwright, I really appreciate it. It has been, in fact, I know a lot of you knew Steve Carlisle, who unfortunately we lost during COVID. But when we were going to places around the world, he used to say to me, "Lewis, you know what we're doing now?" I go, "What?" He said, "We're making memories." And I think this is what part of today is. And that's really what I want people to take away from this book. I don't believe you can read this book and not get something out of it, be it what you do with it, around safety, what you do with it with your kids, with your grandchildren, with your friends. Somebody's going to get impacted, and it may be different for different people, but I honestly believe it's the best piece of work we've done for a long, long time. And it's certainly very exciting to see. In fact, I think we've already become a bestseller over a couple of days, which I'm sure is thanks to a lot of people on this call and other people who've dived in straight away.
That's fantastic. And that's very exciting about the bestseller, too.
Absolutely.
Well, finally to you, Paul. Paul Grant, joining us from Scotland. This book features over 70 contributors. Why was it so important to hear from so many voices? And how does that reflect the book's subtitle, Surrounded by Potential?
Yeah, no, that's a great question, Sally. Well, the decision to include over, 70 contributors, in Personalities Remixed, was very intentional. At its core, the book is about recognizing the immense potential that exists all around us, in every person, in every conversation, and in every relationship. And to truly reflect that, we needed a diversity of voices, stories, and perspectives as part of the book. The subtitle that you mentioned, Surrounded by Potential, isn't just a tagline, it's a belief we have. When we listen to different experiences across cultures, industries, and life paths, we see how the e-colors and personal intervention tools can unlock something unique in everyone. It's not about one person's journey or a single way of seeing the world. It's about many people finding clarity, growth, and connection in their own way. So, by weaving these 70 voices together, the book becomes a mirror to that truth, that everyone has potential, and often all it takes is the right lens, and the willingness to pause and listen to begin unlocking it.
Mhm. It's so true, isn't it? Just sometimes that needs to be the key to unlock.
Absolutely.
Fascinating, fascinating. Well, we're delighted that you have chosen this time to write the book and that it's in our hands now. Well, let's talk a little bit about the e-colors themselves. As I mentioned at the top of the show, my colors are green red. But in taking my PDI again just last week, I came up as red green. I think I think I prefer to be green red since
You have to stay green red. That's what's in the book, Sally.
well, that's good. I think that's my preference because I like to think that I weigh the facts and my options before making decisions. But maybe I need to remind myself to use my pause button a little more frequently these days. For me, the e-colors has really allowed me to gain a respect and understanding for people who think and respond to things differently than I do. But most notably, no offense, for our top color blue friends, which happens to be the majority of my family. So the e-colors have not only allowed me to be a better manager and leader in my work life, but they certainly have given me the tools to deal with my family more effectively and dare I say, more empathetically in recent years, most importantly, with my 94-year-old mother. That mental pause button sure comes in handy when I remember to use it. Just giving yourself a few seconds to pause before reacting on autopilot can make all the difference in your interaction with people. I was thinking maybe I should have it tattooed on my hand. So just like some of the ways, I think we've got some e-color advocates who have actually done that. And I think you'll see that in the book.
Yes, you absolutely will. We've actually got two people now. Andy Ward, who hosted this morning, has got a big tattoo on his hand of a pause and play button here, and another guy who works with us with social media. Emma's trying to show it, but she's got a blurry background on her screen there. But another friend of mine has actually put a pause and play on his wrist here. It's amazing. So
That is, that's commitment.
yes, very much so.
Definitely. I have my bracelet on.
Yeah, me too.
Well, speaking of advocates, we do have some folks on the call today who've offered to share their stories and have also contributed to the book. So, Lewis, I'm going to let you take it away, do the honors, and introduce our speakers.
Okay, so I just want to, just before looking at the people who are on the call, I just want to recognize somebody, Rob Wheatley. He was the very first person that gave us the opportunity in Nigeria in 2004 and is still a huge advocate for us. Rob, I don't know if you want to say something or not, but Laura and I have actually just been doing, as you know, we've been doing some podcasts called The Intentional CEO. And there is a whole long section coming up in a couple of episodes about how we got started with you. And when I showed you the empty diary and you filled it for me, would you like to say something, Rob?
You need to unmute Rob as well if you can hear
Rob,
us.
you need to unmute.
Yeah, yeah.
You hear me now?
That's
Yeah,
it.
loud and clear.
I guess the only thing I'd like to say is I think you're still from my perspective, the e-colors is still just scratching the surface of the things that it could impact for people. I uh, I see tremendous potential in using the e-colors in doing things like risk assessments and developing the I wouldn't call them mitigation plans, but control plans. How we control risks in our environment. I also think that there's tremendous potential. I know you've been working in schools for many years, but from my perspective, the e-colors should be one of the things we learn in the first grade of school. And it should just be part of our entire educational process, because the more people uh, get embedded in the utilization of the e-colors, the more powerful it becomes. And when you first roll out the e-colors in your operation, nobody knows what it is. Nobody's familiar with it, and you got to create an environment where you enable people to start building proficiencies and skills, and they start to understand when they look at a red over green or they see a yellow over blue, they know in their head what that means with respect to what the needs of that person are, how to communicate with them, and so forth. So I still think you're just scratching the surface.
We
Well,
agree with you, Rob.
sorry, and we will continue to scratch for as long as we can. And again, this wasn't scripted, but I know Jim Upshaw has to leave in a few minutes. And I want to tell you something, Jim. We were actually with another company the other day, and the CEO was asking me, how do you get people to join Equilibria? And I was actually thinking, like yourself, you're working for another company, saw what we were doing, and said, I just have to be part of that. So good to see you. I know you're retired now, but do you want to just share very quickly a little bit of what it's all meant to you?
Sure. It's great to see everybody's face. As Lewis said, I've been retired for a year or two. I tried about 4 years ago to retire, and that didn't work because I kept getting calls from people who I cared about who said, "Oh, could you just do one more before you retire? Or how about just if we do this on the side?" So, yes, finally, a year ago, I cut the cord. And yet, when things like this come up, the yellow in me can't pass up a celebration. So I saw that. And then to think about the people that I would see who I've missed so much for that year, I couldn't do it. I couldn't pass it up. And then I got a call from Lewis about, yeah, could you say something? Well, going back to where it all started, in 2008, I had been working for another performance management company, and the emphasis was on performance and not necessarily on people. And I was on a drill ship, the Discover Deep Seas, that many of you know about. And I saw these posters and I started looking. It was the brain poster with the strengths and potential limiters. And I thought, now that makes sense. And we were not doing as much people-oriented consulting. But Bob Barton, who was one of the Chevron DSMs on that rig, said, you need to meet Lewis and Laura. They're coming out and doing some really good stuff with us, and you're kind of one of their type of people. And I didn't know what that meant until Lewis and I got together for a dinner that lasted for 3.5 hours. And when you talk about yellow reds, you get two of us together and we can go for hours finding out about each other and what's important to each other. And so for 15 years then, I was proud to be a coach for Equilibria. And what has happened is that the people who I have met, whether fellow coaches, whether people that we have coached, whether people I've just met in workshops, have become important friends, relationships in my life. I can't help but share a story with Sydney Schellenberger, who, before I got into performance management, I was with the UPS world for 8 years, and I started out as a driver. And Sydney and I were talking at a workshop about where we came from and all of this, and she brings up Tiburon, California. And I said, I used to be a UPS driver in Tiburon, California. And she said, oh, and she said, I lived on Paseo Mirasol. And I said, oh, yeah, I know Paseo Mirasol. Your mom used to get a lot of stuff back in those days. And so then you come together and share the things that have happened since. And that, I think, is one of the most enjoyable parts of having been and continuing to be, to have relationships with the people within Equilibria. As I say, with
Jim,
yeah.
sorry, but I'm going to cut you off if you don't mind, because I know there's a lot of people who want to speak. And actually, I'm just seeing there must have been a heavy storm in Houston because some people are getting cut off. So
Oh,
if we lose some people, apologies. But Jim, I just want to say again, thank you, and thank you for making the effort, and thank you for everything you've done. And it
my
really
pleasure.
ties a lot to the book, and I think that's what's important is when you look at Personalities Remixed, you're going to hear so many stories from people who've actually, in their own way, been impacted or are impacting. And Mr. Payne, Dave Payne, I know you were good enough to write the foreword as well as give me quite a lot of feedback about things we needed to include in the book, which I've done. Would you like to say a few words?
Sure. Thanks, Lewis. I appreciate you including me in this. It's actually kind of humbling to be actually asked to speak with so many people on the call who probably have more and better things to say than I do. But anyway, to follow on to Sally's start, I'm calling in from Pismo Beach, California, where it's probably close to half the temperature it is where Sally is. Has the best weather in the United States. If you ever want to come visit, it's actually demonstrably 350 golfable days a year. So
Oh,
if you want to come out and check it out, and here we are. We don't have storms like they have in Houston. So anyway, I would start by saying, I met Lewis when I first became the vice president of drilling and completions for Chevron. I was what I would describe as the unexpected vice president. And clearly I didn't expect it. And I was a bit overwhelmed. And I was sitting in a cubicle on the 6th floor in 1500 Louisiana with no protection and trying to get unburied from all of this stuff that I got to now learn. And in walks Lewis. And as you all know, Lewis is kind of a force of nature. And it's kind of hard to say no to. And so he was introduced me to what he was doing, and it kind of struck a chord, right? If you're really interested in keeping people safe, if you're really interested in understanding people and leadership and all the things that go with that, the e-colors it resonates fairly quickly. And so it did resonate fairly quickly with me. I had a HSC advisor named David Phillips, who it resonated with him probably even faster than it did with me. And I would be remiss if I didn't mention David, because he was actually he and his wife, Sandy, were the ones who first introduced it into schools. To be fair, Sandy introduced it into Sweeney, Texas, because she wanted to do something to improve collaboration in the English department. And it ended up being done all the way across the school with all the kids. And I have to tell the story when we set up an offsite for all of the teachers at Sweeney in the Whitehall Hotel across the street from the office. And when I walked in there, everybody, as you would in one of those e-colors deals, everybody's got a big display of their e-colors. And I walked in the room and I went, man, I'm red yellow, like because you have to have a second color. But I walk in the room and everybody in that room was green, red, red, green. And I instantly understood why I had so much trouble in school. Right? So for some reason, teachers tend to be people who are attracted to teaching tend to have those personality types. And I also found out later that my father, who's a lifelong educator, is also blue-green and explained a whole lot of stuff that happened when I was a kid. And so I tell that story because I think it's important to recognize that these eye-opening experiences can change how you behave, how you react with other people. It answers a lot of questions that you might have. And it also, I think, and it really came from the schools where a lot of bullying was eliminated, because once kids understood themselves and each other, they understood their differences, and that's really what causes bullying in the first place. Is that the differences between different kids and their lack of ability to deal with that. So anyway, I don't want to take too much time. I am Top Color Red, so I keep this short. But I think I agree with Rob, and it's great to see Rob's ugly mug. I hadn't seen you since you retired, man. I'm glad you look like you're doing great. But
Still ugly though.
Yeah, still ugly. You can't fix ugly. Still. I think Winston Churchill said that once when he was told he was drunk, and he told the lady, "Well, I might be drunk, but tomorrow I'll be sober, and tomorrow you'll still be ugly." But anyway, I digress. But I agree with Rob. I think there's so much more potential out there, and I have to give you kudos to close, Lewis, and your team, and always being open to that next step. Right, the work you did with when you had the opportunity to collaborate with Rob Fisher on human performance was really game changing for a lot of folks around the world. It's made a big difference, and that openness to change and openness to learning the next thing is huge. I encourage you to continue to do that. The folks that are going to be in the business a lot longer, and keep doing that. Right, it really is going to make a difference. So Lewis, you and all of your team, thank you so much for what you did for us at Chevron. I know you saved some lives. I know you changed a lot of lives, and it all was for the better.
Oh, bless you. Thank you. And I do know, I see there's a lot of notes coming in on the chat. And by the way, if anybody wants to put in the chat, some impact the e-colors have had on you. But last but not least, I do want to just say two things. First of all, I know that Ben Randall, who's leaving actually Chevron, has got a watch party going on. Mr. Hasman and whoever else is with you, much appreciated. But I wanted to give the last word from this side of it to Sana. Sana, maybe you'd like to share your story, because I think it's probably quite unique.
Hello, everyone. It's so lovely to see all these familiar faces. Wow, Dave, I don't know when I saw you last. Well, I guess it was a year ago in the Chevron facilities. First of all, I just wanted to say, look, my name is Sana Manjeshwar. I am currently the leader still of Chevron's Ombudsman program. However, I am leaving Chevron at the end of the month to pursue my own opportunities closer to the East Coast. I'm here in Philadelphia now, no longer living in Houston, Texas. So maybe I'll enjoy the golf courses too at some point. I just wanted to say, first of all, e-colors, Lewis, I've shared this story. Laura, you guys changed my life. There's no other way for me to express it other than I am not the same leader that I was 10 years ago. I believe I couldn't believe it's been 10 years since I've known you. And I remembered it was the first time I joined Chevron. I was a newly minted Chevron employee and had joined this team. And at that time, Chevron San Ramon was the headquarters and very much the predominant culture. And then there was me, this new experienced hire coming in at Chevron. And I walked into the room and it was full of people with their colors displayed, red, yellow, green. And all I saw was, what are these colors and why are people putting colors in themselves? I don't understand. I knew that Shark Yousafzai, who had hired me for the role, said, you need to acclimate to our Chevron way. But he never said anything about e-colors. So I panicked. I said, how am I going to acclimate to a country, to culture where there's colors I don't understand? And of course, I didn't know Lewis. I didn't know Laura. I didn't know e-colors. Somebody on our team very graciously said, if you're going to be successful at Chevron, first of all, you do need to know and understand the e-colors. And also, all leaders at Chevron lead with red. And I'm looking here on the screen, I'm seeing actually there's quite a diversity of leaders that are very esteemed and very established that did not lead with red. So that's a whole other discussion for another time. So I said, well, I want to be a leader at Chevron, so I better understand what I need to do. And the first thing I did was research what e-colors were, did my e-colors myself, and panicked when I said, oh my gosh, I'm yellow over red. I will never be a leader at Chevron. But one of the things that I did was make sure that I understood what this meant. And so I actually reached out to someone who then connected me with Laura, who then also gave me an introduction to the e-colors. I attended at I can't remember the name of the school, please forgive me, Lewis, the name of the school that you had invited me to where you had introduced e-colors. And that was when I truly absorbed and understood how e-colors is implemented. And that actually changed how I practiced as an ombuds, which is helping people to bring their best self to work. And so I started implementing e-colors and using all the e-color tools in how do you give feedback? How do you truly understand how you're giving feedback to someone if you don't understand how they're seeing the lens of how they should be receiving feedback? And it completely changed how I helped people and coached people to feel safe to bring their best self to work, to feel safe to have feedback conversations. And then as the world of inclusion and diversity evolved, I found, wow, this is the perfect time as a global organization, the only universal language that I felt I could truly use to help people to communicate with each other was exactly that, e-colors. So for every presentation I gave on psychological safety and how to bring your best self to work, how to give feedback, how to make sure that you are truly understanding, leading your team, I brought in every single possible tool that there was from e-colors to help them to be able to understand their perspective, how they bring their best self to work, and understand others so that they met that universal need, which I know this book is revealing, which is we all have a universal need to feel seen and heard at work and in the world. And Lewis and Laura and your team, you're truly making an impact. And I really can't wait to see. I wish we could just share this with the world. I feel like this should be in every single company. And I feel that this is a true future as to what we need in this world, especially in our unprecedented times. So I wish you all the best, and I'm here to support you all the way.
Thank you. And Sandra, I'm just going to tell you a quick story. When I lived in Houston years ago, there used to be a really good dry cleaner across the road from where Steve Carlisle and I lived. And I went in one day and was speaking to the owner of the dry cleaner. I said, you know, you have the best dry cleaners in Houston. He said, I know. Tell your friends. And I really believe that this is our way. The more people that, I don't know how to get that on the screen, but the more people can actually get hold of Personalities Remix, it's one of our best shots in seeing just how far we can share it. Sally, back to you.
Thank you. Wow. Those are some great stories. Thank you so much for everyone to share them. But Louis, I am going to pop back to you for just a moment. The man who kind of started it all, you've seen the e-colors transform lives. And as Dave Payne mentioned, save lives and change lives, from oil rigs to boardrooms to schools and even families. Why don't you share a few of the stories that stand out in your mind with us about the impact that the e-colors has had?
Neither of them know I'm going to do this, but actually when we talk about changing a dynamic in a family, I'm just going to offer it very quickly back to Mark and Emma about their story about buying a bed. And maybe, Mark, you want to tell the story, but if that's not a change, I don't know what is.
Yeah, I'm more than happy. In fact, to be fair, one of the answers to the question that is coming up, I was actually going to reference this, but I'm happy to tell it now. There's two stories actually. So my e-colors are yellow over red, changed from yellow over blue actually, as I started to manage my emotional self better and become a little bit more decisive, and that really helped me in the world of entrepreneur, and now coach and director, etc., and author. But also I met Emma, and Emma's e-colors are green over blue. And Emma has a very high green, 43% green, and a 3% yellow, which is the lowest we've ever seen globally. I think she holds that record. Unless anyone else wants to challenge that and let me know. But as far as I'm aware, I think that's the lowest yellow score I've ever observed. Whereas my yellow is 40% and mine green is 9%. And when I show our premium reports to people, I had one guy say to me once, "You're brave," and I laughed and went, "No, no, 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 no. You need to learn about this and appreciate, what each other brings to the party." We also have dead level red and blue, basically. So we're very, very level in those areas, but very different in others. So Emma said to me she wanted to go on holiday, and I said, "Yeah, no problem." She wanted to go to Dubai when we first met. So I went straight to book it, 20 minutes after she'd mentioned it, and I was ready to book it.
Got distracted. I thought this was the bed story.
No, I'm leading to the bed story. But the point is, I know what I'm doing, but thank you. The point is actually, I went to book this holiday and Emma burst into tears, right? And I was like, what is going on? Because I care about this person. Why is she crying when I'm trying to book a holiday for us? This is going to be lovely. And so that was a real learning moment for me, because I was like, right, I need to pause here. I need to stop that. And actually what happened was, a week later, Emma produced a beautiful spreadsheet and we ended up booking what I was going to book in the first place. But that's another story. Anyway, so the other point to that is we also went to buy a bed. And I'm 6'4", that's 193 centimeters. I'm a big lad. And we went to buy a bed. We needed a bigger bed to sleep in together at Emma's house. So I walked into the local bed shop. I walked in and I said, what's your biggest bed? What's the memory foam mattress? He went, it's this Super King thing. There you go. That's it. I laid down on it. I went, right, that's the one. Let's go. And Emma, were you going to speak? You going to share?
You didn't shop around, you didn't do a spreadsheet, you didn't measure the bed could check in the room, you didn't measure if the bedside tables would fit, you didn't know if the bed could get up the stairs, you didn't know how much it was. Just the first bed you saw.
Yeah, the first one, the biggest one, and it looked like the most comfortable. And I laid on it, it was fine. But the point is actually, Emma was like, pause, okay, let's go back, let's do all those things. Go on.
The point is, we still have that bed now.
Yeah, it's a beauty. And we did buy the one that I was going to get in the first place. Anyway, that's another story. I'm not scoring points. What I'm trying to say is that actually, that understanding of personality diversity, actually, I take the action, I get out there, I make certain things happen. Emma is brilliant at details and design and all the things you see, that look great are coming from Emma. She's fantastic at what she does. I'm okay at what I do. And as a team, we actually make something really special happen. And I think that's a lesson in itself. And what Dave was saying, my mother was blue over green, is blue over green. And it explains so much about my childhood, for sure. So
Thank you.
Yeah, really useful.
Thank you, Mark. So Sally, that's one of it. I mean, they're still together, so that has to be considered a success, and very successful together, by the way. But there are a couple of examples I think is probably worth sharing. I typically do share this, and again, seeing some of the people on here, they know very well the story already. But yes, we started in safety, and there is no doubt. I still hear from people around the world who have definitely been impacted, and sometimes they're alive today because they've understood a little bit more about themselves than they did before. And a lot of those stories are in the book. But there is a story I want to tell, which I'm not quite sure. I think it is in the book, but I'll tell it anyhow. It really brought it home to me about the differences in people. Actually, thanks to Dave Payne and actually Rob being very supportive. When we were working a lot with Chevron years ago, we actually had a secondment program. So people from Chevron would actually come and work with us for 6 months and literally travel their world with us, kind of riding shotgun with our coaches. Laura and I were in Calgary along with 2 of the secondees, one of whom was a young lady called Kunsa, who's predominantly blue-red, and a guy called Regan Brasseth, who was predominantly green-red. Laura is predominantly red-yellow, and I'm yellow-red. So one night, we got a chance to go and watch Cavalier, which is kind of the Circus du Soleil on horseback. Absolutely amazing. There is a moment in this show when there's about 3,000 people in the tent, the light's right, the music's right, and there's a lady in the ring with about 8 or 9 horses. And I can tell you, I can cry at anything. So you remember when we first met, we were both crying, right, Sonny? So, because I didn't want tickets for the Super Bowl. All right. So as all the music is playing and the horses are running around, and the tears are just pouring out of my eyes. And I look over at Laura, who doesn't cry a lot, red, yellow. She's got tears trickling down her face. And I look over at Kunsa, who's predominantly blue-red, and she's crying like a baby. And I look over at Regan Brathis, who's predominantly green-red. I said, Regan, what do you think? And he goes, the 7th horse is out of step, and it's driving me crazy. And we're slapping. So understanding the difference in how we view the world is really, really important. And last but not least, and I know I've told this story probably a million times by now, and I'm not exaggerating. After we got going in schools, and I think Brenda Artiga is on this call. She was the superintendent at the time. We were working with Southwest Schools, and unbeknown to us, they had actually taken the e-colors into the residential treatment centers, which is where young kids between the age of 11 and 16 who were recovering alcoholics and drug addicts had found themselves in these centers. Without our knowledge, they'd taken the e-colors into these centers, and literally, I think 2 weeks before, all of the kids had been supplied with our personal intervention pause and play wristband, just like I've got here. Laura and I were sitting with a group of the kids about 15, 16 years old. We were going to have a break, and three of the young ladies said, "Hey, Laura, Lewis, don't leave. We want to talk to you for a minute." Everybody else went out of the room, and we said, "What's up?" They said, "Oh, we just want to thank you." I said, "Thank us for what?" "Oh, we were going to commit suicide last Saturday and decided to press our pause buttons." And I tell you that because from that moment on, however humble we were feeling about what we were already doing, it just took things to a whole other level. And so there is no doubt, the e-colors will impact people sooner or later. It's just a question of how and when and how it applies to them.
That is very powerful. I mean, it's life and death, right? Wow, amazing. I want to pose a question to our authors and to the audience, if you want to use the chat room to respond. What's one situation where you used to react automatically and now you handle it totally differently because of the e-colors? I'll just start with one. So I had two occasions, one with my 9-year-old niece, and then one in my professional life with a coworker. And both now I come to find top color blues. And, I immediately, with the 9-year-old niece, we were doing something quickly and I needed her to get somewhere. And the tears started streaming down. And I just picked her up from school. And she said, "You didn't even ask me how my day was at school." Crying, crying. And I thought, uh-oh, there's my green. I need to stop and engage on a personal level before I go to the task. And the same thing happened with many top color blues in my work environment. And what I realized is it doesn't take but 30 seconds to ask someone how their day has been, how their weekend was, if you knew it was their birthday yesterday, how they shared it or spent it, before you dive into the task at hand that needs to get accomplished. And that one pause button for me, and to remember to engage on that personal level first with our top color blues, has been remarkable for me in not only the relationship building, but then as a result and the responses that I've been able to get. So that's my story. Does someone else want to share? Is there someone in the audience? Sydney, or someone had their hand up. Sid, did you have your hand up before? I don't know if you're there. Maybe not.
Why don't we let Paul Grant answer that one for the moment, Sally?
Yeah, that'd be great. That'd be great. Paul.
Yeah, I think one clear situation for me has been how I handled emails. As someone with red greeny colors, I'm naturally task focused and action orientated. And in the past, I tended to fire off quick, to the point responses just to keep things moving. So my mindset was always, get it done, keep it efficient. But what I didn't realize was that that can come across to others, especially those who are more relationship focused e-colors, such as the yellows and blues. My directness could be misinterpreted as abrupt or dismissive, even though it was never intended to be that way. So, through the e-colors and learning to use personal intervention, I've become much more intentional. I now pause before replying, considering the other person's styles, and tailor my tone to communicate more effectively, not just efficiently. So, I might add a line of appreciation that can often soften the message, if I sense it could land too hard. So that, that small shift, pausing and reflecting before I hit send, has made a huge difference in building stronger relationships and getting better results, not just, faster ones. So that's something that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
Sally, I see we do have a couple of people in the education world. Brenda Artega, would you like to say something?
Hey there, everyone. I just want to say I'm so grateful to be here, and thank you so much for the impact. It wasn't only just those 3 students and life-changing for them. Hey, Zenobia. It's also influence that you guys had over teachers, administrators, parents. You touched the communities. Zenobia is on here because later on after Southwest Schools, she was in professional development with me, because every time that I did a professional development, I would include e-colors in it. Although sometimes people would not understand why. By the end, they did understand the why. And then, I want to say the biggest thing that I think that no matter what organization or entity that you're with, the biggest thing that eColors does is impact organizational health. And I think that there's not enough emphasis on that. And, people wonder why they're losing people, wonder why they can't retain employees. Really, it's because people don't stop, pause to think how they are impacting others. And one of the biggest things that I think with the play pause button being a top red, because my green and my yellow change, but as you know me very well, I'm pretty solid red green. I have to pause and then observe the other person and then decide whether I remain paused or if I'm going to push my play button. And I think that that's very important, especially when you are working with people and you are really concerned about organizational health, about how you're impacting, no matter if it's another staff member, if it is a teacher, if it's a student or community member, and I really believe that it's helped me make lifelong friends. And I'll go as far to say that then that even people that I've had to be in a conversation with that we were ending their time with us have remained friends with me, I think, because they knew that I valued them, I gave them dignity, and I think eColors has a lot to do with that.
Thank you, Brendan. Thank you for your support over the years. So we do have a couple more minutes, Sally, and then we'll go back. But is there anybody else? I know Ching Han has just come on. Ching, welcome. I know that you and I certainly had an interesting discussion one time down in Corpus Christi. I don't know if you want to share that or not, but I think it was a bit of a life-changing moment. Ching, are you there?
Maybe mute button. Yeah.
Okay, you can hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, so sorry, I did log in a little bit late. I'm happy to share how eColors has helped me personally in my personal life. Sorry, I'm like having trouble with Zoom, so I'm not on camera, but I am here. So I had the opportunity to participate in a program with Lewis and some other folks in Chevron. And one of the things I did not realize about the relationship that my husband and I have is he is a top color yellow. And yellows need different things than top color reds. And I'm a top color red. And I did not realize it until I had this epiphany in this Corpus trip that we took. That sometimes my yellow just needs a hug. And not much more than a hug, but really that's not something I thought about as a top color red, right? So I literally, when I walked away from that session, I think it was a couple of days, literally wrote in my notebook, hug my yellow. So I've been kind of going with that and recognizing when he needs a hug, right? And when he needs me to listen. And as a top color red, it's not always easy for me to identify when I just need to sit back and listen versus when he wants me to problem solve. So that was something I learned. And I'd already been married for like 10 years at that point, or like 5, 8 years, right? And I did not come to that epiphany until I went through this few days of classes with Lewis and some other folks. So I still do hug my yellow today. And thankfully, I've also learned, Lewis has taught me that I was not a great hugger to begin with because of top color red. And now I can say I'm a better hugger. And now my yellow is hugged quite often. So thank you, Lewis, for the epiphany that I had during this training class a few years ago.
I remember. Yeah, lovely. And again, these are the kind of things that you're going to get out of the book. I would be failing if Rob Fisher, are you there?
He's muted and not on camera.
Okay.
Oh no, he's here.
Rob, there is quite a little bit about you and obviously our relationship in the book. Would you like to say anything before we hand it back to Sally?
Yeah, I'm Rob Fisher. I own Fisher Improvement Technologies, and a few years ago we decided to kind of merge an understanding of e-colors and how different people see and manage risk with human performance and how people deal with that risk. And it's just been a great spread around the world of allowing people to recognize that maybe two people standing right next to each other will see risks differently. So it's been a great relationship, a great partnership, and we appreciate it.
Bless you. Thank you. Sally, Madame, over back to you.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, fantastic stories, and thank you all for sharing. As we know, Personalities Remixed launched yesterday. And if you haven't purchased your copy, now is the time. And if you buy it on Amazon today, it will help towards the author's bestsellers list. And that's, a distinction that will raise the level of awareness of this book dramatically. So it really does make a huge difference. And if you've bought the book, please leave or write a review because that will also make a huge difference for us. But for those of you who have the book, if anyone has it, I see Duncan holding his up. I thought it would be fun if we could take a group screenshot of all of us on camera. So I think, Emma, you're going to help us with the actual shot or the screenshot. But if you have your book handy, just go ahead and hold it up for us. I guess I'll use the one in the back here. And then maybe 1, 2, 3 or something, so we know we're.
Yeah, I'll do that. I'll do that, Sally. If you've got if you've got a blurred background, try and hold it in front of your face, Steve. I see you doing that as well, right? So that's it. Yeah, if you hold it in front of your face, then we'll be able to see it. There you go. 1, 2, 3. Magic. Thank you.
That's great. Thank you. That's super. And the thing is, as with any good book, when you find a good book, share it, share your intentions. And, again, I think the real importance of getting this message out. I mean, my goodness, when you hear from so many people on this call and around the world, with a major corporation like Chevron that has embraced the importance of organizational health. I love that term. Using the e-colors, and then with schools, and then of course families. I mean, we can just learn a lot, and we've all seen firsthand what can happen when people learn to pause and understand one another. It's very, very powerful. Before I close, just any closing remarks, certainly from our authors, Paul, Mark, Lewis. Lewis, as you are synonymous with the e-colors. So any parting thoughts or closing remarks you'd like to make?
Well, again, I want to say, first of all, I said at the beginning, it's all about making memories. And certainly this has been, first of all, it's been fantastic to see so many people I haven't seen for a long, long time. So thank you for everybody that's come. Thank you for those of you who got the book or will get the book. We can't do this alone. And look, I don't need to tell any of you the state of the world today. That's the reality. And, you know, just like Rob was saying and Dave was saying, we started with safety, and there's always going to be a place in our heads and hearts to make sure that as many people as possible get back to their families in one piece, regardless of what their industry, and that's very, very important. But I do want to give one extra plug for e-colors in education. We had the privilege of actually having a non-profit for 7 years, right up until COVID, when we just, you know, the education thing basically came to a grinding halt. But when and actually one of the forwards in the book is written by Sarah Abisab, who was literally in 3rd grade when she learned her e-colors. She's just going into Rice University on a full ride. So that's how long, you know, all of this has been going on. And I posted today a little video about we need help. You know, the only way that the future of this world got any chance at all is if we start taking things like the e-colors from about 7 or 8 years old. And I would just ask you, whoever your contacts are, whoever's within your sphere of influence, we just keep pushing it out and pushing it out and pushing it out. I will just tell you, as a matter of interest, I started to WhatsApp and on LinkedIn this morning, people I haven't heard from for years, including a lady who used to be quite interested in equilibrium healthcare. She just wrote to me about an hour ago and said in July they're actually going to the White House. We'll see what mood the person is in the White House at the time, but basically they want to talk about the e-colors in education. My only plea to you is don't let this stop. I'm quite honest with the fact. Dave Payne used to tell me, Lewis, like it or not, your runway is not getting any longer. And that's the God's honest truth. So I really want this to go a lot longer than I'm going to be around. And I know everybody who can help will take that along. But the quicker we can get this into schools, the better off for everybody on this planet. And again, I just really, really appreciate seeing everybody, and lots of love from my side.
Thank you so much, Lewis. And as Lewis said, you know, we all recognize that we're living in a world right now, very much so, where people's ideas and opinions are very divisive, and they can be very challenging to accept. So can you imagine a world, you know, where everyone took their e-colors or lived by this understanding of personalities that are remixed, that are different? Imagine having the e-colors as a curriculum in school. I mean, that came up this morning, and it's a fabulous thought to engage in. We would just have an incredible shift of thinking if we could accomplish that. I saw it happen with 10,000 people that were volunteers in Houston. Imagine a world where we all decided to use this methodology. So that's the magnitude that and impact that this book can have on our world. So let's all do our part by buying the book, sharing the book, and practicing e-colors that we've learned each and every day. So a big congratulations to Lewis, Mark, and Paul on the launch of Personalities Remixed. And thank you all for joining us today, and enjoy the rest of your day. It was my pleasure. Thank you.
And Sally, if I may just say thank you so much for hosting this. You've been brilliant, and massive gratitude to every single person on the call. And the UK version of this was this morning at 9 a.m. Also, it's on YouTube. If any of you want to watch that, you're very welcome to. I really appreciate every single one of you. We all do. And Sally, thank you so much, and thank you all so much for being here. Lots of love from London, and yeah, we look forward to your feedback and your Amazon reviews once you've read the book and your experience.
Yeah. Thanks
Thank
so
you.
much.
Thanks, Sally. Thanks, everyone.
all.
Thank
Thank
you all.
you.
Take care. Bye.
Thank you.
From the good side.